Hello, fantasy friends, and Paul, welcome to another wrap-up. This time, it's week 9. And for the sake of time, let's jump right in. We're going to take a look at our first wrap-up. This is going to be the Antelope Postmen at the PC Police. Now, I almost ignored this matchup entirely, just for the record, since Pedro said my wrap-up last week was too long, and I just wanted to be a dick to Paul, but I can't, because I like the sound of my own voice, as you guys know. And if I left these guys out, both of them would get angry and they'd be total dicks. And then I'd be awarding other trophies next week. I digress. A few surprise call-outs for this matchup for the Postmen, mainly. Delaney Walker, best game of the season, 95 yards receiving, two touchdowns for 25.5 fantasy points. Aaron Rodgers, again, putting up amazing numbers. There's really no surprise there, right? On the flip side of this matchup, the PC Police started Big Ben. Can't blame you either, buddy. However, with a mid-foot sprain, he was sidelined early and probably next week as well, or this upcoming week as well. He still threw for 334 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's not bad at all. At the end of the day, the unstoppable Postmen secured another victory, 165.2. Unstoppable Postmen. 165.2 to 112.2 fantasy points. With that 165.2 fantasy points, the Antelope Postmen earn the big Winner of the Week trophy, and they will continue to hold on to the Your Number One trophy until they're unseated, which is not likely at this point, but who knows, right? As for the police, I'm awarding the Golden Dick. You ask why? Well, because I'm the commish, and I can award any trophy I like, and that one happens to be reserved for the commish to award for any reason, so why not give it to Paul, because he's a gigantic cock. Next up, let's talk about the Best on Paper at Dorks Awaken. Now, Best on Paper had a good Sunday. Michael Crabtree, best game of the season, best game that he's had with the Raiders, for that fact. 108 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns for 27.8 fantasy points. D'Angelo Williams was also a powerhouse for Best on Paper with 170 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns for 41.5 fantasy points. But hey, the Dorks were no slouch, okay? With double digits for majority of the players on the roster, Andy Dalton put up some good numbers, 234 yards passing, 3 touchdowns for 27.7 fantasy points. Also, respectable numbers from LaShawn McCoy, DeMarco Murray, and Randall Cobb. It was close, but no cigar, which is why I'm awarding close but no cigar to the Dorks, since only 2.5 fantasy points separated Jason from the win. Best on Paper takes down another win, 149.6 fantasy points to 147.2. Man, tight margins on that one, right? Time to swing out to Bears country. That's the Bears for the Knights Templar at the Bears. To be honest, I'd like to point out that Norman had 0 points on his bench, but I'm not awarding him Humiliation Sucks. Why, you ask? Well, because his team rocked out a win, right? Breeze had another great game with 387 yards passing and 3 touchdowns. Yeah, not quite the 7 that he had last week, but only 1 pick for 41.3 fantasy points. Miami's Lamar Miller hit the end zone twice, earning the Knights another 26.1 fantasy points. The Bears also had a respectable week. We can't forget about them, right? Brady, so-so game. I mean, for Brady, it's a so-so game. Just shy of 300 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, and 1 pick for 20.7 fantasy points. Again, for Brady, not a great week, right? While the matchup was close, Norman took him down 123 to 113.8 fantasy points. As for trophies, I am awarding the If Only trophy to Pops. Now, this is typically, just for the record, a pretty easy trophy for me to assign. Not this week at all. As I looked through all the different teams and I looked at who was left on the bench versus who made the active roster, the only real call out, and again, I'm not sure that I would have even done this, was for Pops to start Derek Carr over Tom Brady. Now, I know, crazy, right? But Derek Carr has been smoking it up. See, that was for Paul, by the way. Little Paul, because he loves Derek Carr. At any rate, though, if you had started Derek Carr, you would have held down the win, so I'm giving you the If Only trophy, okay? I know it's a little bit lame, but hey, I'm the commish, and I can do stupid stuff like that, right? I'm also awarding Humiliation Sucks to you, Pops. Since you lost to the bottom team in the PPFL, and you allowed that bottom team, that being the Knights, to move up in the rankings. Good going, Pops. We all love you, and I'll tell you, Norman certainly loves you because now he's no longer lonely at the bottom. Next up, Fear of a Dwarf Planet at the Swine Smokers. Let's hear it for the Dwarfs. Little golf tap. Cam Newton had a great game, throwing for nearly 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 pick for 38.5 fantasy points. It came down to Monday night, and Stevie Johnson and Antonio Gates. Rivers had an okay game, but didn't connect to either target, and that did not earn the Dwarfs the points they needed to overtake the Smokers. On the flip side of this matchup, Smokers got lucky. Yes, I said it last week. I'll say it again. Got lucky. Antonio Brown having an incredible game, receiving for 284 yards, earning 38.6 fantasy points. The guy didn't even hit the end zone. No touchdowns. Still 38.6 fantasy points. Luck. Yes, lucky. While this matchup was close, the Smokers took down another winner, 136.1 fantasy points to the Dwarfs, 118.3. With the luck of Antonio Brown, the Smokers have undoubtedly earned the Lady Luck Trophy this week. And last but not least, let's do Niners Suck versus the Orange County Ass Stars. I'm not even going to mention Eli Manning yet. I'm going to mention him, just not yet, okay, folks? Because this is important, okay? As for the Ass Stars, AP was solid. 125 yards rushing and 1 touchdown for 25.3 fantasy points. As for the Niners, ouch. What a week. And the ouch is for Deion Lewis from New England. Torn ACL, so he's out. And that's another player. Nearly half of Jimbo's squad, by the way, is seriously injured. Chris Ivory was the main target, 2 touchdowns, but not a lot of rushing yards for 16.8 fantasy points. So that was the big call out for Jimbo. At the end of the day, Little Pete owned Jimbo, 126.6 fantasy points to 78.9. Yeah, 78.9 for Niners Suck. With that stellar performance, Niners Suck is earning a trifecta of trophies. All right? With 78.9 fantasy points, they are our shittiest team of the week, with Norman winning Pops this week. They also dropped in the number 10 rank in the PPFL, earning the Lonely at the Bottom trophy. And as promised, what would a wrap-up be without a jab to Eli fucking Manning? The guy hardly broke 200 yards and threw for 2 picks. In my eyes, my friend, you got screwed by Eli Manning again. Yeah, again. God bless the New York Giants, but Eli Manning can suck a giant cock. Right? Agreed. All right. Let's take a look at those standings here. Week 9 going into Week 10. Getting close to playoffs, right? PC Police, the number 4 spot. They are tied up, of course, with Best on Paper. Yeah, Best on Paper. Danny, you're still in the running. You're tied for 4th. And the Bears. Again, you guys are jockeying for the number 4 spot in the PPFL. Number 3, Orange County Ass Star, almost undoubtedly will make it to the playoffs. But hey, you know, who knows, right? Swine Smokers, number 2 in the PPFL. And number 1 team who gives a shit, Antelope Postman. Have a wonderful week, gentlemen. We'll see you in Week 10.